Good afternoon and good morning if you are in the States. We are gearing up for our second session here. My name is Pete. I'm with the InFocus marketing department. I'll be your host. Just as a very quick intro on what the virtual safari is, it's the fourth time we're doing this. Actually, last time was back in 2016. Throughout every Thursday in April and May, we will host 3 sessions for you, presented by a big variety of presenters. The idea is to keep it all as educational as possible on various topics. So we just came out of a roundtable discussion with a couple of industry analysts about the current situation of the COVID pandemic. But now let's just dive into a commercial topic. So we now have for you Ludovic Martin, who will present his session on how prepress automation can help an online printer win the price war. Not in the price war, I guess. So Ludovic, the floor is yours. I will hand the presentation over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to go. Let's go. So hi, everyone. First of all, I hope that every one of you is fine at the moment. So just let me introduce myself. I'm Ludovic Martin. So I'm from France. I'm a blogger and copywriter and consultant in web-to-print and e-commerce strategy. I'm a former chief marketing officer at Exa Group, which is one of the leader online printer in Europe. So I've been in charge of marketing and strategy during 5 years, starting in 2012. And I started working in web to print for about 15 to 20 years. I started as a graphic designer, and as I loved both print and web, I was really interested by what happened during the past 10 years around this mix. So just to start about this webinar, I just wanted to share you my insights about what's happening today in the online printing industry and how prepress workflow automation may help sales in online printing. So just 1 second about what is online printing for people maybe that are not aware of what's happening currently on this market. Online printing, from my estimation, I did a short market study a couple of months ago in Europe. I estimated it to 2.5 billion euros of revenue per year in Europe. By gathering public information, I arrived to this estimation, and it's around 24 million orders per year. So it's really important today in printing. What's happening in other industries with the digitization of sales is happening today on printing, and the current crisis we are facing, unfortunately, is accelerating this shift. So online printing is representing around 10% of commercial printing in Europe, and what's really interesting is while commercial printing is decreasing during the past 10 years, year after year, printing volumes are decreasing. At the opposite, online printing revenue is growing. I estimated a growth around quite 60% since 2012. And some other studies like the one that did Drupa show that there's an increasing sales generated by online printing, despite constant equipment trade between printers. So 25% of printing companies own web-to-print stores, and for about a quarter of them, web-to-print is representing more than 25% of their revenue, and it's increasing year after year. So it's showing that really there's a major trend around this. Around the trends that we can see in online printing, so as in many other industries, there's this 20-80 rules that we see. That means that 20% of online printers generate around 80% of sales. It's really big companies, often created by mergers and acquisition during the past 10 years. It's often the oldest one. And on a global scale, we see 6 major companies: Seawiss, Impress, Online Printers, Graphenia, United Print, and Flyer Alarm that own this major part of the business. But what is interesting when we have a look at it and from the perspective of small printing companies is that at first there's a slowdown in the growth of these major generalist companies that rise a kind of a critical size. And at the same time, you can see a strong growth of smaller operators that are focused on niche markets. Just to give you an example that is really interesting, this is a Google map I just did with the help of a consulting partner in Germany, which is called Zipcon Consulting, owned by Dr. Ben Zipper. This shows a listing, not the overall one, but I noticed a list of online printers all around the globe. And often it's small companies. And what you see that there are a lot of many of online printers, often owned by small printing companies. And these guys are positioned on niche markets or often in countries where there is no competition of big one. And it's really interesting to see that the revenue that is generated by these small companies is increasing, and there is a real growth. While for big groups and international companies, the growth is slowing down, and for some of them is flat year after year. So the slowdown of the major generalist companies caused by a scissor effect, and this will drive to the next topic around how to win the price war thanks to prepress automation. The scissor effect that are facing major generalist companies is caused on one side by a price war. Everyone is making promotions, everyone trying to reduce price or to fight on the lowest and cheapest price for business cards or so on. And at the same time, as the competition is increasing, you have an explosion of the cost of acquisition. When I talk about acquisition cost, it's Google AdWords, Facebook advertising, or advertising on Twitter, banners, and so on, but mostly Google Ads. And Google Ads, for people maybe that are not aware of it, it's the system of bids. It means that once you have located a keyword that maybe can drive leads to your website, you have to put bids on it. And the highest bid you put, the best position you have on Google. And at the end, it's Google that's winning. But the problem is that when on one side you're exploding your marketing costs, and at the same time you are decreasing your price, you are facing a margin issue, and that is exactly what's happening in major companies due to the increase of their acquisition costs. And this is slightly different for smaller companies. So, as I explained, online printers are facing a major dilemma. The first one is this constant decrease of public prices and the need to make frequent promotions, Black Friday and so on, or seasonal promotions to attract and keep customers. So you are constantly reducing your margin. And at the same time, as I explained, you increase your acquisition costs of new audience to maintain growth of revenue. And as far as you're growing, you need to make investments in machines, in workflows, and of course, because you're an e-commerce, you need to invest more and more on development, and that is really expensive. So this is becoming really complicated when you're a generalist. I mean, generalist, it means that you're selling any type of printing product. You're not focused on one product category. You sell all product categories. So it's hard to compete and be at best price everywhere. And it's also complex when you don't produce 100% of what you're selling. That's the case, for example, major fabless, what we call fabless online printing companies, mean that they don't own any part of their printing, Or hybrid, it means companies that are owning and producing one part of product they sell and that are subcontracting on the drop shipping mode other parts of what they're selling. For printing companies, smaller ones that are only focused on printing and that are only using online stores to sell what they manufacture and only what they manufacture, the situation is slightly different. So now what I propose to you is just to have a look and to focus on what is the value in online printing. So at first, as I explained, the first part of the chain is acquisition of new customer. You are going to pay for that. You are going to make trade shows to send salespeople finding new customers. Okay, once you have driven there to your storefront, you need to convince them to purchase print from your website. So this is the second step, ordering. Once you get the order and the payment, then you start different part. So it's the green part, which is related to prepress. So you are going to start file checking. It means that once your customer has sent you his file or created a file from a template from your website, your prepress operator needs to get the file and check is everything is fine. And often nightmare is starting at this point, because when you're targeting end customers, families, people who don't know anything about printing, it's hard to get PDF X3 files from them because they are going just to prepare the file from Word, Publisher, or I don't know, all the softwares that are a nonsense in printing industry. And if it's fine on their computer, they think it will be fine on at the end on the printing material. It's an endless story in printing, but it's really a problem. So file checking is really important, and it's a step where many problems happen. Once you have made this step of file checking, then you need to gang your orders. That's key for generating margin. It's not in all product categories. It's not every time possible, but for example, for business cards, flyers, or labels and so on, you are going to gang your orders you get every day on common and ganging products with the same characteristics of substrates, finishing, and options or delivery time. Once you have ganged them, you need to start printing. And just to get back on ganging is really complex and it's key for margin, because if you don't gang correctly your orders, you will have wasted paper, or you will have incomplete sheet of paper, which is a drama for printers. And you will also not be capable to deliver your products on time. So this is key. So now you're going to start the printing process, really as a manufacturing process. So it starts with the printing of the material, then finishing, conditioning, and then shipping, the fourth step of production. And when the customer receives the order, now you start a second step in the value chain around marketing, which is to work for making this customer become loyal and start becoming a repeat customer that will order back your products and then start again this cycle. So, sorry, this is a global value change we can see every time in online printing industry. So now, how can prepress automation may help you improve your margins? Because as soon as there's this price war on online printing, even if you're not a generalist, even if you're focused on a niche market, you need to take into account the price made by a competitor, by smaller one, by bigger one, but you need to be aware of price, and you need to be not even the cheapest one, but to be on price on the market regarding the level of quality and the standards you are targeting. So you need every time to check pricing, and at the same time to improve your margins, because it's key for the strategy of your company. So at first, what I advise is regarding the value chain of online printing I've just shown you, is just detect where you have tanks or waste of margin, depending on where you're positioning. So it's just starting thinking about where I'm losing margin or where can I improve things. You know, for people that are familiar with lean management, it is the concept of lean. It's just having a look of all the processes and say, okay, before starting gaining new customers or purchasing new machines I'm just going to improve things and to make fine tuning on everything to improve the way and to improve processes. And then after I will grow. So locating these tanks of margin, for example, the first one is standardization of custom orders. Often I see mine printers that are making custom quotes every time. They're making quotes for the same category of products, the same description day after day, and they don't standardize at the moment. So it's important once you have launched your business to list the repeat orders and repeat quotes, and then standardize them and build a price list. So you are able to standardize them to make this kind of scenarios that will help you improve your gaining. Then second step is just to list all the manual and repetitive actions your colleagues are making and people from your company are making. They are repeating the same things, they are repeating the same actions, making the same control. And at a moment, you need to ask if they have a real added value making this repetitive action. If it's no, then you have to think about automation. Also about manual repetitive action, I see really often people getting orders, for example, from emails or FTP, and then copy pasting them in their ERP or typing them manually. So in making this manual import or export actions that are working, think about IT integration, make IT system communicate and integrate each other. You will improve scalability and will improve the process and reduce your costs. And also, one way to gain money is to increase the speed of manufacturing, because time is money, and customers are looking for the fastest delivery time. In many European or US same day delivery. I'm not talking about next day, it's same day delivery. So you need to go fast, and to go fast, you need to automate. And also a way to reduce costs and to improve margins is to lower the number of after-sales cases where we refund customers because they are not happy. If you reduce this, you will improve your margin. And then at the end, of course, one location of margin is shipping costs, but that is depending on many negotiation or external issues. So at first, if we are getting back to this value chain, we are going to focus on pre-flight and flight check. In that case, let's see how prepress automation may help you gain margin. For pre-flight and file editing, as I explained, quality of file is really a problem, because your customers, especially if you're targeting B2C and individual families, they don't know anything about resolution, DPIs, CMYK colors, and things like this. They are just able to design something that can be absolutely ugly. We all agree on that. Make this on their computer, push this to you, and I expect that you will print them exactly what they have on their computer screen. So as they don't know anything about prepress standards, and as also template editing tools generate often poor quality files, you need to improve pre-flight and file editing. In B2B, or what we call the reseller market, when you are working with advertising agencies or freelancers, we also see a kind of similar approach, which means that the new generation of graphic designers are digital native. It's people that started learning design on web, not on print. And so many of them don't know the rules of printing and prepress constraints. They don't know, for example, what is a rack. they are completely ignoring this, and that's a problem when you are selling your printings online. So as soon as you will get more and more orders from your web-to-print stores, because of these problems of file preparation, you will face an increase of customer support around file processing. It means that you will receive calls of people that won't understand your constraints, that won't know how to prepare the files. You will also see an increase of the time spent by your prepress operators to check and correct the files. And as I explained formerly, you will also see an increase of after-sales caused by misunderstanding or people that are not happy about the results of the printing. And even if it's their fault, they won't understand this, and they will put a bad advice on your company, saying that quality is crap and it's not normal to have this quality and blah, blah, blah. So that's a real problem. And on that point, prepress automation tools may help you do two things. The first thing is automating file check by running scripts that will analyze a file and detect most common errors and ease file correction. And the second is also that often you get PDF files that have been generated by many different softwares. And if you try to edit them, for example, in Adobe Illustrator, it's really complicated because the interpretation of the PDF is not correct. You are missing fonts. It's a nightmare for the prepress operator. And some automation or file checking software enable direct editing and correcting on the PDF, and that improve and fasten the time needed to check your file. So this is the first way to improve your margin, just by reducing the time required for file checking and file editing, and also improve your customer satisfaction and reduce the cost of after-sales case. Second step, it's ganging. So as explained, online printing business models can be scalable only if you are able to gang the amount of orders you get day after day. So it means that you will check all the orders that have the same characteristics in terms of substrate, finishing, color scheme, sizes, delivery time. I don't know, that depends on your model. And you will gang the orders on the same machine and print them at the same time. And often you have, for example, to close your orders at 12 o'clock and start processing at 2 p.m. to deliver at 4 and ship them at this moment. So it's really reduced time, and all need to improve this, because often when you make manual ganging, it's possible at the beginning when you're starting your business, and especially if you have really experienced prepress operators. But as far as your company is growing, it's starting becoming impossible to make manual ganging, and also it will be a bottleneck in terms of process in your system. In that also part of the life cycle in Web2Print, prepress automation workflows can help you detect job characteristics, help ganging, create hot folders to receive all the orders with the same characteristic, and make faster ganging and with less errors. And also these workflows may help you do the best ganging with the reduction of waste paper, and so reduce the cost of your printing. As I explained, scalability is key because it's not on online printing. It's key in as soon as you are doing e-business. You need to have a model of company that can start at 1 and increase at 100. You need to thinking at the origin, especially in terms of production, because there is something that is critical is when your company is growing, because your customers are happy, salespeople are doing their best job, and behind this, you are not able to manufacture because production team is just struggling. So you need to build a scalable system. And for that, also prepress automation may help you by building workflows that are not just relying on one computer or one person having the knowledge, Often at the starting point, you're just building your workflows with scripts on InDesign, Acrobat, Photoshop, or Illustrators, and everything is running through one machine. But it's not scalable, neither secure. If the computer is crashing, if the guy running this is going on holiday or is sick, you cannot scale it. And as soon as you need to build a second computer workflow, it's not possible or it's complex. So you need to build workflows that are reliable, scalable, and that are not depending on one person or one computer. And also, scalability will just depend on the power of calculation of your computers. So if you build at the origin these workflows with a smart mindset and starting at the origin with the vision of growing, then you will be able to scale. And if you have started with just manual workflows, as I described on one computer with InDesign or Illustrator, now it may be time to start building this kind of scalable workflows with automations at every step. Now, also, as I explained, I see very often people copy pasting files and orders they get from email or FTPs and typing them manually on their storefront to repeat this and sending emails with the status of the order to the customer. So a lot of manual action. It works fine, no problem on this, but again, it's not scalable and it's not reliable. And it's a bit crazy to make manual action when you are just getting orders from an output from an IT system to an input to another IT system. You need to think about seamless integration. When I'm thinking about seamless integration, is just asking your customer, what is the output format you are able to give to me? And once you have this description, then turn back to your IT and say, okay, I want to get that flow and push it inside my IT system without any manual action. As soon as you are able to make this, thanks to these workflow systems, you are able to have this seamless integration with customers and you have a scalable system. And you will be able to discuss with the IT systems of your customers, which is at first a gain of margin. And at second step, it's also a real competitive advantage regarding your competitors because you will be able to lock into their system and say, okay, push me orders, I will push you back statuses, delivery link, and so on, invoices, and then we will have IT system discussing each other. And as soon as you're able to make this, what I call plug and print IT systems, you have a real strength in your system. You will improve your margin and you will become more competitive. We are close to the end. I just wanted to have one more slide around this. So the first one is standardization and reduction of after-sales support. I talked a lot about this, but really what is interesting is to think about the reduction of after-sales support and at the same time, the improvement of customer loyalty and customer happiness. Because you're salespeople, you know that it's hard, really hard to get a new customer, and it's harder to keep him loyal and just to keep him. So many online printers are focusing on customer acquisition, spending thousands of euros or dollars to get customers, but they have a real poor customer loyalty rate because they don't do very well their job in file checking or file processing or after sales service. And so once they get 3 customers, they lose 2 of them, and that's really not good in terms of productivity. So prepress workflows may help you improve and standardize your color consistency, PDF standardization with certified PDF, approval process. And so you're going to reduce the amount you spend every year in after-sales support, in customer acquisition, so it's a lot of money, and also in refunds. So year after year, thanks to this standardization and prepress workflow, you are going to improve your margin, you are going to reduce your marketing cost because you are going to work on a loyal base of customers. And that is the way you are going to improve your margin and have a chance to win this price war. So now that's just the end of this presentation. I'm just open to question if you are.
Thank you very much, Ludovic. Well, actually, there's a couple of questions from that I've got in the panel here. First of all, is this that I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the key takeaway is that if you build a loyal customer, that pretty much solves your acquisition cost, because you might do Google AdWords to win one customer for one order, but if you win the same customer for 3 orders and maybe 5 more to come, that really helps your Google ad spend. So you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. One of the questions is this: what do you do if you already have automation in place and you want even more margin? What do you do? How do you start optimizing? Do you start measuring and improving gradually, or how do you get started on that when you're already automating?
So yeah, that's the case of many printers. So what I recommend is to make on a frequent basis, every 6 months, you start analyzing your customer journey. Not thinking about your production workflow, but think about your customer journey, where it starts. So what is your original point? How does he start knowing or hearing about you? From this point till the reception of the order. And you draw this and you put the position where you have automation. And you have to ask every 6 months where you need to improve things, where you are maybe losing money. And if you have automation workflow, that's fine, but it's like processes in companies, you need to improve them every day. And if you do that exercise every 6 months, then you will detect bottlenecks, you will detect maybe older machines or things that are not very well done, or maybe new options available or new requests from customer, and you will improve your system. So as I explained, lean management is something really important in the culture of printing and organizations. And the way to improve your workflows is also around lean, which means small improvements on a frequent basis, and think about this fine tuning day after day.
Okay, thank you. Then in the very beginning, you talked about the price war. Have we reached the bottom there? Will the price still decrease, or are we nearing the absolute rock bottom?
I think that price war will continue because that's the global trend in e-commerce. Everyone is fighting to have the lower price, but I think that something is changing, especially with the crisis we are facing, is that in every country, people are understanding that it's important to purchase locally. Of course, you can find the lower price, but if, I don't know, your order is traveling on thousands of kilometers, people understand it's a nonsense. It's a nonsense in terms of sustainability. And it's now we are really understanding this. It's a nonsense in terms of risk, because companies are thinking about risk management, and that's key today. So I think that price will maybe raise a kind of balance between multiple arguments. It will be important and it will still be important, but between a balance of various key objectives. And as a printing company, especially in online print, you need to explain all these differentiators, saying, okay, we are not the cheapest one, but as I have prepress workflow system, I'm able to plug into your system and avoid you spending time sending me emails and so on. So you will not pay the lowest price, but you will gain money on your internal processes. And at the same time, I'm located in the same country as you, I'm a local industrial, and I have a sustainability politics. So if you take into account this mix of arguments, I think that it makes sense, and that not everything will be focused on price. So you need to be at the right price, but not the cheapest, absolutely, if it's not your model.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions for you, so I'm just going down the list. If you put automation workflows in place, and you have people already in charge of checking files, but you automate that process. For example, a graphic designer who checks files, and then the part of checking the files kind of goes away because it's being automated. What do you do with your graphic designer?
So the question is just about added value. When you have someone just opening PDF files, checking if there are crop marks and if fonts are embedded, where is the value of doing that? I think that a computer can make this. What the computer can't make and will be never able to make is maybe call the customer and explain him, okay, you have placed a black, but it's in printing, we don't use 100% black, we use rich black, and that's important for, blah, blah, blah. If you put this person where the customer is in need, it can be expertise, it can be artwork creation. Then you increase the value of this person in your company, and you will increase your competitive argument. For example, what we see in online printing in the US, which is not the case in Europe. In the US, many printing companies are offering artwork creation. They say, okay, I don't want to provide you with a template library. It's not my feeling, but I will make the artwork for free. That's a part of their mix. And I think it's better for them in terms of sales and marketing attractivity to have one person in contact with the customers, designing them their artwork, instead of making this file check work, which is not real added value.
Yeah. And also, I think if I might add just one thing, you will also, I think, improve the satisfaction of your employee, of your graphic designer, because it's the part of the job that he or she will find tedious anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're growing your business, because you have a lot of orders arriving day after day, and it starts becoming stressing and really repetitive. Yeah, absolutely.
Two more questions about the same topic, actually. Do you have an idea of the return on investment of a web-to-print solution compared to a cost for an operator? And from someone else, we had a question like in a Southern Asian country like India, where wages are where labor is very cheap. How can you introduce automation there?
So return on investment, it's hard to say. I think it's more a question of scalability, because of course, if you put the cost of a license and implementation of a prepress workflow in front of the cost of an employee, depending on rates of some countries, it can be a nonsense or something difficult to compare. But having a lot of employees doing repetitive tasks, I think it's hard to scale, because as far as you will grow, even if these people are not expensive, I don't like this word, you will need people to manage them, you will need computers, you will need softwares, and at the end, the cost is important. So again, I think that it's not make the opposition of people versus automation workflows. It's having a global model and thinking about how can I scale it? How can tomorrow I can replicate my model in 3 regions, other countries, the world, I don't know, but scale it and without having bottlenecks or without having to hire people and people. So build this model, put people at the right place, and where you have these bottlenecks or where you need to move to go fast and to be really reliable, put automation in place.
All right. Now we're down to the final question. It's actually more about technology and software. We had much success in the US with the integration of Pitstop and EFI job flow. Are there other software integration relationships that really work?
On my personal side, so as I said, I have former experience of graphic designer and working on just starting at the origin of the chain, and I really appreciate working with Pitstop. Also certified PDF and the possibility to generate this. I enjoyed building workflows with Switch. I worked with other systems like Locales or Delim. From my perspective, and I can tell you that I'm not paid by these people, but I found that what I enjoy with software like Pitstop or Switch is the ease of use and the ease of building workflows. I'm not a developer, I'm just, I would say, a power user. And I'm always focused on having the fastest time to market and having reliability and visibility on what you're doing and understanding. And I find this system really, really interesting. But if you are thinking about implementing a system, I would recommend you to make a benchmark of different technologies by maybe asking integrators to show you various technologies, and in front of your requirements, your problematics, and your company, just build this benchmark and say, okay, which one suits the best my requirements, and with which one I'm the most familiar with and happy to work. You all frequently have demonstration license, so test them and choose the one that is really matching your needs.
All right. I think we've reached the end of our session because we need to wrap up to make to go for the next one. Let me just quickly share my screen again. So Ludovic, thank you so much for your presentation and your insight and sharing your knowledge.
You're welcome.
Hope to see you again on the next edition. Next up, we have Natasha and Rachel from the Exchange US, who will tell Switch customers how it's possible to work through VPN to work from home, to work remotely. And next week, there's also a couple of sessions already planned. Jos Stuttelings from VIGC will explain the role of print media in the modern marketing mix. Raymond Duval and Florian Keesbauer from Impressed, and our Toon van Rossum will help you how you can be the king of the jungle in on-demand book printing, which actually ties into this session quite well. And then also Dave Swang, chairman of the Ghent Work Group, will show you how you can future-proof your flows. As from tomorrow, we will start publishing the next couple of weeks in the schedule as well. Our schedule is actually fully booked. We'll work on getting everything uploaded to our website as soon as we can. So I can only thank everyone who is here for attending this session. We will send out recordings somewhere tomorrow as well, and hope to see you back on a next session of our virtual safari.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.